year, that growth rate actually in the third quarter accelerated to 13%, and if we ignore the effects of currency, 15%. And we expect to end the year between 735 and 740 in terms of sales, or a growth of about 10%. Now, these numbers do not include any of the effects of the game plan yet. If we move to the next slide, in terms of gross margins, during the last five years, our margins have been fairly steady in the 40 to 41% range, with one exception, and that's in fiscal 1996. And we had two factors that depressed margins in that year. One was the high cost of moving to the soft side upright products as the whole industry moved to those products. And then the second factor would be the high commodity prices that we experienced in our basic raw materials. And they would include resins, ABS and polypropylene that we use in hard side products, paper products that we use to package our goods, and textiles, nylons, etc. Now, what we've done, those prices have come down slightly in this last year, but more importantly, we have proactively met with our suppliers and have challenged them to bring the cost down by 10%, to come up with new processes to manufacture those raw materials, as well as providing us different raw materials that do the same job, but must provide us with at least equivalent quality, if not better quality, and they have responded very well. In addition, when we add to that global sourcing, the benefits of that, as well as product standardization, we feel that'll aid our effort even further. Now, in the current year, fiscal 1997, for the first 9 months, our margins have rebounded some, 39.4%. But I think more importantly is the fact that we expect a significant improvement from here for three reasons. One, when we looked around the world, the one market that we had insufficient margins was in the U.S. Our margins in the U.S. were around 35% versus 40 to 40 plus elsewhere. And the reason for that is that we took no pricing in over 5 years. So in October of the current year, we took on average about a 2% price increase, and that held very nicely. We have now announced an 8% price increase effective March 1 of this coming fiscal year. We've met with the trade. Dick has done that with the marketing team, and they've accepted the price increase, and our competitors have given indications through their actions that they will follow that price increase. So that will significantly help our margins. In addition, the second factor, the cost reduction programs that Dick mentioned, 2/3 of those are geared to cost of goods sold, 1/3 to SG&A. And then the third factor is as we introduce more products with higher price points that carry higher margins in the U.S., that will also aid our efforts in terms of gross margins. In addition, operating margins have also rebounded in the current year. Now, moving on to normalized operating cash flow. Over the last 5 years, we've had a steady trend upwards in terms of our cash flow. This business does generate cash flow and free cash flow. Now, in the current year, that trend has continued. But more importantly, we've been able to take and convert $30 million on non-operating cash flow items that do not appear in this chart into cash in the current year. We have in excess of $20 million of real estate being held for sale right now, where we're in the process of negotiation with various buyers that we expect to sell and realize over the next 12 months. That $20 million will fund what we expect our working capital requirements will be as we grow sales next year. Moving on to the next slide, in terms of normalized income per share from continuing operations, if we focus on the two right-hand bars, that's a comparison of the 9-month period this year to last year. And we've had a 65% improvement in earnings per share. Now, just a few points on total debt, because I think total debt kind of summarizes what we've been able to do in terms of cleaning up this balance sheet. When the parent company reorganized in June 30th of 1993, we had $584 million of debt. The next year, we purchased American Tourister for $63 million in cash. So our debt was approximately $600 million. Since then, in 4 years, we have paid off $300 million in debt. And our debt now stands at $300 million at October 31, as reported in our last 10Q. Now, we have paid down another $5 to $10 million in the last few weeks. And after the offering, we expect our debt level to be somewhere in the 180 to 190 range. And if we take a look at what the projected EBITDA would be next year of approximately, I think, $120 million, then we would have debt service coverage of almost 6 to 1. That's going to give us the financial flexibility that we've not had in the past to grow our company geographically, to invest in new products, and to make strategic acquisitions. Now, moving on to a few comments about our business strategies and the financial considerations of our game plan. This next chart shows the 2 restructuring programs that we have announced. The first one has already been accomplished, and that was moving the manufacturing of Jacksonville to Denver. That will save us on an annual basis $3 million. $1 million you'll see in the 4th quarter of this year, and the other $2 million will realize an incremental savings next year. The second program, the restructuring of operations that Dick mentioned, will save us $13 million on an annualized basis and $8 million next year, for a total incremental savings next year of $10 million and $16 million when the programs are fully implemented. Other cost reductions, global sourcing, product standardization, and expense controls will aid this whole effort. Let me see if I can summarize it in terms of how we focus on our business, and that's operating margins. That's the operating earnings as a percentage of sales. Right now, we're running at around a 6.5% range. We expect next year, and we have targeted 10 to 11% in terms of operating margins, or a significant improvement. And the following year, year 2 of the plan, would be about 15%. Now, moving on to the balance sheet. We've talked about the first point. Let's go to the second point in terms of better management of working capital. Dick mentioned about inventories. Accounts receivable. We've been much more diligent in not giving extended terms. But more importantly, accounts payable. When we sat down with our vendors, it struck me that they were very pleased in doing business with us, a little bit too pleased. So we did a little checking as to the days outstanding of our payables, and they averaged 28 days. Many vendors we were paying in less than 10 days. No wonder they were very pleased. So we sat down and renegotiated our terms with them and told them if they want to be our vendors, we want 45-day terms on average. And they've responded. Many of them have actually given us 60-day terms. And if you look at our 10Qs over the last year, you'll see an increase in accounts payable. That's not because we're not paying our bills. It's because we have negotiated longer terms. And that's helping us build the business, better match up our payables with the days outstanding of our receivables so that we can build the business without generating too much working capital. We've talked about debt reduction, so let's go on to my last slide. And that's other positive income factors to consider. The deleveraging that this offering will afford us will save us $10 to $12 million in cash interest expense on an annualized basis. In addition, we took an aggressive position in terms of when our parent company reorganized to elect to write off the fresh start amortization over a 3-year period of time. That was $165 million. That is behind us now. That was done in June of this last year, and incrementally next year we expect a improvement in earnings just from that one fact of $24 to $25 million.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is our Samsonite game plan. I think it is fair to conclude that it is singularly focused on enhancing shareholder value. I would also add that the management team is deeply and profoundly committed to this plan. I personally will buy 50,000 more shares as part of this